Hey, welcome back to our continuation of our meeting yesterday, our 9 o'clock strategic planning meeting. This is a continuation of that. It is July 19th, 2022. We have finished our consent agenda and are back in our conference room. And we will go ahead and start at this point with Gary on our budget workshop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, commissioners. Really appreciate you taking the time to set aside 5 hours for this budget workshop that we're going to go through in detail with all the expenditure items.
Anything for you, Gary.
Today I brought with me two of my staff, Ellie Murphy, to my right, and then you probably already know Tessa Sheldon. So Tessa is going to be leading off with just a recap of the second quarter financial updates that she just passed out to you. So Tessa, you want to start on that?
Yep, I'll take it away and we'll be pretty brief. There is nothing of significant note that happened in the second quarter. Operations have continued very steadily. We did receive our first installment of property tax for the year. So that is a huge revenue booster for us. We operated in the green for the second quarter. We are not, let's see, I'm gonna back up real quick here. For our operating revenues, we're just shy of 50% for the year, which is really good considering that we do have a lot of our revenues coming in December for debt service payments that would push us over that 50%. So that's not quite an equal split in our year. Sales and use tax is coming in very strong, 9.5% over our estimated budget year to date. And then property tax collections are also more than 50% for the first half of the year, which is an interesting trend. Operating expenditures are under our 50% mark for the year at 43.7%, which is a great sign. We are not outpacing ourselves for the year. And we will note that we are monitoring contract settlements for specifically our corrections officers and our sheriff's deputies agreements. We are tracking those and we'll bring any items of note to you in the future as we see any changes that need to be made. The next page is the revenue kind of dashboard. So how revenues performed compared to how revenues performed in 2021 for the same period of time, the first 6 months of the year. And then on the third page, we have our operating expenditures, again, showing 2022 versus 2021 for the first 6 months of the year, as well as a breakdown of all of our agency spend for all of our different departments in the general fund. Any questions?
So just making sure, so these are comparative by this first 6 months, so last year and this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Is the reason we're down in some of the categories because of vacancies, or are there other dynamics that are going on?
Yeah, we definitely have quite a few vacancies in our law enforcement and corrections areas, which is helping stave off the contract increases right now, which is hugely beneficial. Again, we have not spent all of our capital that we've budgeted for the year yet. That's kind of, I think, due to some supply chain issues. Things are taking a while to enact purchases. And then we've just started doing some of our transfers out to other funds. So we did the first half of the property tax shift back to the road fund just recently. So some of that's starting to come to fruition.
And Tessa, also to Commissioner French's point, we are running right now 4 to 5% higher in vacancies than we have in previous years as we're looking at our turnover rates. And then additionally, and I don't think this would have impacted the last quarter, but if seasonal hires were as part of where we'd be as of today, we are significantly under our seasonal hires in a variety of our departments, including parks and recs and roads right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
So next we have on the handout outside agency allocations. And here we're looking for input and direction from the board on your allocations for what you'd like to do for 23. And we could also build in contingencies into these allocations for 23 as you so desire. But we just took what we currently have budgeted for 22 in that left column and extrapolated out projected 23 in the right column. So last year, and actually this year's budget, we have 4.8 budgeted, with the largest component being the health district up at the top, and then the various other agencies down through the bottom. So what we're hoping to do is spur some conversations amongst the board here to see what they would like and throw out some ideas in terms of entities to be funded and amounts to be funded.
So I know Wasac, we're just starting our budget process, so I mean, those numbers will change. I don't think we'll have like assessment. I'm not sure, you know, all the assessments that will be occurring, so. So anyways, so we will not know that until September.
Perfect.
That wasn't there discussion around what we would fund the health district with?
Yes, the team's looking at all the opportunities for different ways our mental health sales tax that we collect at the county can be utilized, and learning more about kind of how the funding buckets work at the health district. Is that an opportunity to utilize some of those dollars there? So I think Gary and Tessa are looking at where some of the eligibility might be, learning more about some of the deeper elements of the health district and where some of those eligible dollars might be able to come from. So very draft in terms of that amount right now.
But that's certainly a big reduction in that total number if we can use other dollars to fill that hole.
Frees up some general fund dollars.
And also the Ignite Northwest, that was a special request for the 1 year. I don't know if we intended for that to be ongoing. I mean, they may come back and make another ask, but I was more under the impression that that was just sort of a 1 year ask. Could be wrong, but
Nope, we'll just move those dollars instead to more of a contingency or another line that can be allocated if they came back or another group comes.
So you also don't have the Regional Clean Air Agency on here.
We do, it's
Yeah.
slipped in their air pollution,
Yeah.
up here at
and
the
we
top.
got their letter yesterday, very timely,
Oh,
for their new assessment
I thought that was a contribution we were making to pollute the air. So it's actually to clean it.
to clean it.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Want an offset in the same amount to pollute.
We can buy some more cars.
So just as by way of explanation, the reason for the significant increase, we haven't had an increase for salaries for a little bit, but the biggest thing is marijuana. And the continued trying enforcement actions and stuff. So we are re-engaging with the marijuana industry and seeing if we can lower that cost and do something differently with that agency. So more to come on that.
The other thing I would highlight on here is under the economic development for the West Plains PDA and the Northeast PDA. Gary's team has been working with the city to refine our how we're capturing and crediting the PDAs for the non-construction sales tax. We're getting pretty close on some numbers, shared it with the West Plains Board S3R3 earlier this week. And so we'll have I think a better idea of what that could look like into 2023 for both of those PDAs.
Yeah, and the major reduction from the 1.3 down to $500,000 is just a kind of a guess. I talked to Tessa. She thinks that any type of money that needed to be forwarded from past year's calculations will be in 2022, and that's what the 1.3 is, and so that's why the significant reduction is shown in 23.
And I do know the AGC program, they're looking to expand, so they may have a different number coming to us too. So just, I don't know what that is, and that'll be discussion.
Am I overlooking where?
Oh, there it is.
AGC.
AGC detention service, yeah.
That's the
Head Start.
apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Head start construction.
We're trying to come up with some more use-based items. areas too, so.
Good. Relabel that.
I know, that's kind of an
Head Start to
old name.
Construction, yeah.
Okay.
Then I know like the Hub Sports Center, but is that through a different funding source? Because they usually ask for a certain.
Grant, right?
Yeah, we usually do that through car rental tax funds.
Yes, for the resurfacing of the floors.
Yep.
We'd like to also, like we said, insert a line item here just for contingencies, just for the purposes of funding anything that comes up during the year that isn't contemplated at this time for just specific allocations under the outside agencies. Separate and apart from any other contingencies. And we'd like to do that in an amount of $50,000.
Haven't we been fairly consistent in terms of trying to fund some activity with the MAC? Is that every
it's-
year, or is
it's-
that every other year? or
It's depended if they've brought in, if they're bringing in a big
big
show
show, right?
that they don't have the funds for, that they can show is gonna be a big tourist driver
Yeah.
than we have. There's been some years where they haven't had that big sort of centerpiece type thing, so we haven't. But I mean, sometimes they don't know until just a few months before they're gonna get that big
Yeah,
exhibit, so
but that could come out of the 50,000 contingency.
I think so.
And then
They've only ever approached us when it is gonna be like a real marquee exhibit that's gonna bring people in. From outside the area, for tourism and stuff, so.
So am I missing something? Don't we usually get to visit Spokane, or do we know what's going to happen with the TPA? Are they gonna bring it back, or
They're,
still wrapped around the axle on that?
I believe last I heard is the Visit Spokane is visiting with Cheney, Liberty Lake, a couple other jurisdictions to see if they are interested in participating with a TPA. And that'll inform on how they advance the petition effort. So once they know that information, then I believe their plan is still to petition the hoteliers to bring back a TPA.
But that wouldn't be reflected on this spreadsheet, so.
So also to just kind of firm some things up so that we can have a tabulation to you guys with some numbers in it. I'd just like to build in maybe 10% into the WASAC until we get the right numbers for 23. Would that seem
Yeah, 'cause-
appropriate?
yeah, like I said, I don't know, we're just starting to look at that, and it won't get approved by the board until September, so that's really when we'll know what the budget will be, and then it's November. when
We know it's not going to go down too much, right?
No, we're discussing what those percentage increases are.
Well, and at the last meeting, wasn't there also a conversation about maybe increasing the allocation for legal?
Yeah.
Too, and stuff, so you've got not only the dues, but you also have the legal contribution as well, that's gonna go up.
Trying to figure out that, so.
Do we know, I know you have a number here for aging and long-term care, of Eastern Washington. Do we know, is that the number for next year? Okay, I was gonna say, I thought they're usually kind of late to get that number to us. It's not until winter when we get, I want to say it's near the end of the year when they usually send us I mean, it shouldn't be too terribly off from what it was last year, but I don't think we normally get that number till pretty late in the game.
Do you want to build a percentage in there for 23 as a placeholder too?
I mean, 22,740, I mean, I would doubt it would probably be above 24,000. Yeah, I mean, like, if it's gonna be a change, my guess is it
Yeah,
would
not much.
not be much at all.
We'll put that.
Yeah, I mean, just to be safe.
I mean, you're just seeing a lot of places with increases and inflation and salaries. It's, I mean, everyone's looking at like, you know, potentially 10%.
Yeah, that's why I threw out 10% from one side. Well, we'll certainly be revisiting this in each and every subsequent workshop, because we'll have more information maybe to impart on the health district and component changes to that might be funded with some other choices. And that would have a big material impact on how much we're allocating anyways. All right, so if we want to go on to the next topic, this is the small arms range. And we're getting close to getting the bonds to pay for the small arms range. And one of the things we're looking for to the board is direction on any buy down that the board would like to use of our general fund current expense cash to set the amount of bonds that we're going out for. Under these, there's 3 scenarios that Tessa provided here, if you want to take the board through that.
Yep. So our first option A is a $0 buy down on a 20-year term at a 4% with a principal amount of $25.9 million. We did round numbers to keep the math simple. The annual payment's about $1.9 million. So almost 2. Option B would be to do a $5 million cash buy down. That would bring our payments down $400,000 to $1.54 million. Option C is a $10 million buy down, which would bring our payments down to $1.2 million, which is closer to what we'd originally anticipated out of REIT 1. And so the project is well underway, as we know. We have paid out all of our design costs and some initial construction costs to the tune of $4.3 million cash already expended on the project out of our general fund cash balance. The contractor provided us estimates on what they'll be spending over the next couple months until bond proceeds are received, and we will get close to that $9.5 million figure we anticipate.
So include the EBOC, correct?
No, because that construction piece has not been bid out.
Because I thought I heard yesterday.
Wait, I'm gonna correct that. We still have amounts included in our bonding projections for the EBOC.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I heard yesterday that the sheriff had to go to a different place to get EBOC because even the course we're gonna use isn't big enough. The course we're building, no, maybe I
I
just
think
heard.
temporarily they wanted to use the old Spokane Raceway, the Talisman
Yes.
track.
Yeah, but I think they were saying that even because even their current course, so the course that they have designed won't accommodate what they would do. Oh,
It must be a specialty training.
Maybe so.
I can't imagine it would be their routine training.
Yeah.
I think they've purpose built for their routine training.
think so.
So we would want to clarify that.
So is the Fair and Expo HVAC upgrade in addition to the art request?
That was the request that they presented last week.
Okay. So it's included in capital budgets, but the request was, as I remember, the request was that we funded through art. Is that accurate or not?
I don't know that they made a specific identified source. It was more just an awareness. I
Okay,
think
so
that,
they didn't care how we spent, where we
As long
got
as
the
we-
money,
no, and
as long as they got it. Got it. All right, got it.
I think Commissioner, that also highlights the opportunity for us to do a deeper dive into the Fair and Expo finances and see what, where they might be able to sustain some of the debt service within the Fair and Expo finances as opposed to utilizing REIT. It could be a utilization of it, but
Yeah, that list of projects at the end of the packet here is really just a smattering of different things that may or may not come to fruition, timely or not. Some things may be jumped. We do know that we have our ERP replacement that we're working towards. The Green Buildings Act, to get all of our buildings up to be super spiffy. That'll be quite costly over the next several years with a phased approach. Gil's actively researching alternative solutions for us though. So we just kind of want to provide a holistic list of what may or may not come.
Well, and I think it'd be important on this list to identify what would be read 1 versus read 2 as well.
And so we're going to be getting all of our capital projects submitted through our budget process, and that will identify all of our funding sources. So we'll have a much better capital list coming here by September.
And that will segue well into what we propose for the next budget workshop, which would be August 15th or 16th, in which we'll address the need for establishing capital reserves and doing that in our 23 budget with an appropriate amount that the board feels comfortable with, along with any restricted reserves that you'd like to set aside and to design a policy around what the applicable uses would be. And we would also want to tee up in that budget workshop revenue assumptions that we're going into for 23, including the sales tax revenue and property tax crystal balling. So that'll actually be a pretty fun workshop in which we'll weigh in with different economic conditions, factors associated with it, and get some input from some local economists too. But I digress a little bit. I want to come back to the what we're looking at here in terms of the small arms range. We do have a number of parks projects, keep in mind too, that we will need some funding for the future. And Scott and I have been looking at different financing options for that. So that's why we presented the range of options that we did here, 0 or a 5 or a 10. And we're getting close to where we need a decision on this, because we're getting close to the fixed amounts that we need to set. Any ideas? And I'm throwing that out on the table for you guys for discussion. Any questions?
I'm still at 10 million. If I don't.
That's where I'm at. I thought that's where what we had sort of agreed, well. That's what I was anticipating we were gonna do.
And then it saves us a significant amount of the payout for the debt service on the REIT side. Gives us more operating flexibility by not utilizing everything in REIT 1 for debt service.
Yeah. That number sure accelerates the more we pay down up front for our ending fund balance. So,
Yeah.
Say if we can do it, I think we should.
So is that direction I'm hearing from the board?
You have to.
Gary, when would you anticipate next action by the board to affirm the amounts that we'd be going out for a debt issue? I would imagine that would be in the formal action that they would take.
That would be
Middle of August.
yeah,
We
that-
anticipate bond resolution
Yeah.
being fully drafted.
August 11th through the 15th.
Okay.
And the reason for that also is the timing of when we'll have the preliminary and audited financial statements ready to go in for lining up interviews with the rating agencies. Right. So I know you guys are pressed for time here. We just wanted to again try to get on your agenda. I don't know what your calendars look like, but on August 16th budget workshop.
As a part of our 2 o'clock.
Yeah, however you want to schedule it. It fits within your needs.
I'm gonna be out of town the rest of that week. I have our WASAC executive retreat,
Do you want to do it on Monday, the 15th?
so Monday would be better.
We'll work with Gina on getting that on the calendar.
I'm good either day.
All right, we'll get that scheduled and get that on the calendar. And again, the issues or the items that we'll also present is we'll have additional information at that time. We're hoping to complete our 2022 year-end projections and where we think we'll be at the end of this year. And that'll help inform us for what we're gonna do in terms of our revenue projections. And then the next workshop, subsequent workshops, we'll be looking at the expenditure side of the forecasts. And keep in mind that we'll get back to the board for a briefing when we have our September 6th roll up of all of the general fund departments and a tabulation to present. That is all we have, so we can move on to other board business. Finish.
Thank you.
You take away the miscellaneous items.
And we've got three of them, and in each the order, we Commissioner French has one, we have an ARP quick update, and then a discussion on commerce right of way. So, any preference on order that we take those in?
I'm gonna be real quick. Evidently, I'm still trying to put the history together on this, so I might be derelict. But evidently, there was an opportunity to get a grant from Ecology, an amount of about 450,000 that would do well testing out in the West Plains for PFAS and PFOS. And as I'm ferreting through this, evidently, it was a grant that was put together by Mike Hermanston. And then at some point in time, it was determined that maybe the health district ought to be the lead on it, since it's a health issue as opposed to a water resource issue. But I could be wrong there, so don't hold me to that. But now evidently the health district got it, and they want to partner with the county because they don't have the ability to execute on the grant, but they don't want to lose the grant. So we've got to either agree to partner with them or the money goes away and stuff. And so I do either one of you remember this conversation or not? I was challenged by it when I had constituents in right before 2 o'clock, and they were sharing this with me, and I was challenged with trying to remember it, but it would make sense that we send it over to the health district since it's a health issue. But I gotta be honest with you, I'm a little vague on some of the details and stuff. And if setting all that aside, would we be willing to partner with the health district to go ahead and take advantage of the grant, get the testing done? Because a lot of wells out there in the Palisades area and the West Plains and stuff don't know what level of contamination they have, and every one of the tests is like a $400 or $500 cost, and not everybody has the $400 or $500 to do the test on their wells, so they don't know whether they're contaminated or not. So it seems to me like, God, this would be an easy lift for us to just partner with the health district or whatever and say, yeah, let's go, let's execute on the grant so we can at least get the information. So
That mean county staff would be going to each of these properties and taking a sample and then go, or
We would probably do that in concert with third parties' assistance, but we could help more oversee the program, administer the program, because we have some knowledge. And our Rob Lindsay's team is aware of this, and we could step into that. So I could have Rob come and give a briefing to the board, give you a little more overview of what this would look like, what it would entail, how much lift on county team would be, and just a timing when we could kick this off.
evidently, the based on the information I got before 2 o'clock, Ecology is saying to the health district, either execute on the grant or we're going to take it away. And so there's a window of opportunity for us to say, yeah, we'll support you. But that's as much as they know about it and stuff. And so it seems to me like something we would do, but I might have missed something. So that's why I'm bringing it back and saying, is this something we ought to be participating in? I mean, it's grant money that's going to come to either the health district or the county to administer, and why would we not do it?
Do you know when that was? For some reason, I remember some conversation back when Bob was there.
Yeah, and it was based upon the information that's given to me today, it was Mike Hermanston that actually put together the grant. And And they put together a partnership to go after the grant money, and oncology said, God, this is a great grant, we'd fund it. But at some point in that discussion, it went from the county to the health district. And I thought, well, okay, maybe they treat it as a health issue, which I could understand. But then it just kind of got out idle and stuff. And so the constituents are saying, the county is saying no, and I'm going, I don't remember this coming to us to say yes or no. So I told them I would get back to them, but I said, I'd be surprised if the county was standing in the way, but maybe there's something I didn't know, or meeting I didn't attend, or whatever. So is this something you guys be in favor of partnering with the health district on or not?
I think so. I mean, Rob came in at one point and briefed us on some testing a couple of years ago.
This is,
I mean, it's like, I can't remember, like,
evidently this started back in 2017. And so there have been a number of different efforts ever since Fairchild discovered the PFAS. There have been a number of different efforts to get testing. And there was a grant that was issued for testing, but it was for all the wells that lied west of Hayford. And these properties, the green is the properties that would be impacted that lie east of Hayford. And so these didn't get any of the testing money, these did. And so maybe it got lost in, so anyway, that's what I know. And I apologize for being cryptic on it. It's what I know that I've learned in the last 2 hours. So that's it. So, but if it sounds like something we'd lean into, then, you know, I can go ahead and, well, you can go ahead and coordinate that.
Yep.
I think we got somebody that can administer everything.
What do you know about waters, wells,
What do you
and
know about
testing?
water wells?
talk to our grants folks. They're very people.
I'll circle back with Rob. I think
Okay.
he's out for the rest of this week. I'll circle back with him and get some more information and understand what timing looks like and get him to help us understand what it takes to move this thing forward.
Thank you. That's all I have.
See, you want to do a quick touch on ARP?
Yeah.
Then we'll jump on to conference.
I'll pass out the spreadsheet.
So this is a quick update on drinking water storage category. No decisions to be made today. But when I first touched for awareness, we only received 3 applications for this one. There's a more specialized category, infrastructure, drinking water storage. The town of Latah scored the highest among the scoring group, which was Matt Zarakor, our county engineer, as well as Dale Anderson from civil legal office, Aaron and myself. And you'll see 2 other projects also scored well. That'll be a decision that the board will need to make as far as funding goes. If you want to add funding, we have $500,000 in the category. So if you funded all 3 projects, we would need to add $955,000 more dollars to the category, because each project essentially applied for near $500,000 of the total pot. We have some more discussions and focus on this in August, but wanted to at least do our first touch on it. Questions on this one?
So the third one, so that's not, it's not part of Liberty Lake.
So the project is actually on Legacy Ridge, but it's more for gravity flow purposes. The Consolidated Irrigation District has pulled up a map. It roughly goes from Flora east over to a lot of Otis Orchards area. It actually goes a little bit north of Trent at one point, and then it comes down. It's roughly equal north of the river, south of the river. So it borders the river, kind of your Sullivan, Flora, down south to maybe as far as 32nd and as far north as some of the homes north of Trent. So it's a large district kind of in center east valley area with all the growth out there and fire issues, particularly Salties Flats, Liberty Lake, or the natural area around Liberty Lake. They're looking to put in a 2 million gallon reservoir. And as you can see, it's almost a $4 million project. They have the other 3.5 raised. They're asking for 500. So those are projects for awareness. We can make decisions and place on a consent calendar later when we have those decisions made. That's it for ARP. You passed the broadband one at the 2 o'clock, but neither Arian or I were over there too. So
It's because you briefed us up so well already. You didn't need to come.
that's it for ARP right now.
Thank you.
Our next topic is the Commerce right-of-way grant that was issued by Commerce nearly a month ago. If for your recollection, it was a $24 million plus grant to be made available to our county. It was specifically intended, as we understand, to be addressing the individuals on the WashDOT right-of-way, Department of Transportation right-of-way in the area of Freya and Second. A number of folks from our team has been meeting with City of Spokane, Spokane Valley, the Spokane Housing Authority, thank you, to discuss different ways to potentially utilize these funds. The grant had a very tight turnaround. It's due by Thursday. We did, in concert with those partners, submit a letter of support for the first 30% of the amounts a couple of weeks ago. And now this next round is essentially, do we want to, how do we feel about supporting a next larger ask for Commerce of these dollars? I'll highlight a few things and I'll let Jeff kind of walk through some of the finer details. We drafted up a letter for your consideration that would lead into how we might suggest you think about responding to the grants. As I mentioned, very tight turnaround, a really robust evaluation, should be months in the making. A lot of the program choices that the City of Spokane have proposed are loose budget numbers without the ability to spend with no fault of their own. A lot of it, they spend a lot of time understanding service providers, understanding the services that were needed. I think we've got some concerns as far as the ongoing sustainability of the funding. If you look at the $24 million that would be programmed, there's probably over $14 million that would require some ongoing operating funds to be able to fund it. And to my knowledge, there's not just those available funds to just continue to fund those things. So we've got some questions in the letter that highlight that. We also think a big missing component is the affordable housing element. And as the letter calls out, there was an op-ed in the newspaper penned by the Director of Commerce for the state, highlighting that new construction and investments in affordable housing needs to be a very significant part of it. So the letters also address that piece as well. So I don't want to steal any more of Jeff's thunder, but perhaps Jeff, you could walk through some of the salient parts of the letter that we're proposing for the commissioners to consider signing in anticipation of the 21st due date of this.
So the first thing I'd like to point out that the actual staple package from the city, if you look at the first piece of paper front and back, it is a letter. It appears they are suggesting that these 4 people sign the letter. I'm assuming we will go with how we did our 30%, where we will sign our own letter separate from this. In conversations this morning with Spokane Valley and Eric Lamb and John Lemon may be on. They were hoping to possibly zoom into this meeting. I think the Valley is in the same place. Of course, they've not met yet. Their meeting's tonight. So that's an assumption. So that would be question number 1. Are we only signing our own letter, or are we also signing this thing? You guys could make a motion today to sign at other than a public meeting after today's discussion, as I do expect it to be, as these things go, there are often last minute tweaks and changes. Being it's not due till Thursday, that would be another option to give yourselves the authority to sign it tomorrow if there are a few changes, or if you like where we are today, that's of course within your purview. The affordable housing piece came up, really started last Friday, when staff was tasked to look for opportunities to use these funds as directed, but also for solutions that don't have ongoing cost. As Scott just mentioned, a lot of ongoing costs with a lot of these. And Scott did a close read of the Commerce Director's op-ed, and we honed in on affordable housing. So that was one we called the city and asked them to add. So it is in the list now. So we have a section on that and why in this letter. Enforcement is something that has been discussed at a couple of the meetings. Commissioner Cooney was at those. We have been told in those meetings and in staff to staff conversations that the very first meeting the Commerce pulled together, the county did not receive an invitation to. So the cities had a conversation with Commerce we were not at. In that discussion, it sounds like the state patrol has said, based on language in this letter, that by October, they want to have that site cleared. And these funds are in place to get us where that can happen. So we have been told that enforcement would happen at a certain point. Feedback I've heard from the 3 commissioners and their offices is this is a very important aspect. I think there are a lot of people in the room who agree. Even we read in the paper from Jules Helping Hands citing residents of this camp that they don't want to leave. They're comfortable where they are, and we're hearing there could be a lot of people not interested in leaving. So I think without an enforcement piece, we're probably not going to get to that ultimate goal. So that's why there's the enforcement section. And then as Scott already talked about, the funding piece. You know, we're looking at a low end of at least 14 million up to 19 million of ongoing costs. So in a way, this is
Per year.
Annual. Now, the other piece of this that is unusual to my experience in the legislative arena is usually there's give and take, but both sides know they're going to get the parts they like. To Commerce's credit, they've been very upfront and clear about the fact that they are viewing this as more of a a la carte menu, and they will pick and choose from the list. So while you guys might like some parts more than others, there's no guarantee at this point which parts of the plan will be funded. So that's why we have that 14 to 19 million range, depending on what they choose. Some items would have a higher out year cost than others. So this letter, our 30% letter clearly stated this is a letter of support. This letter acknowledges that we've been a part of the process and highlights the parts that we would focus on if we're going to narrow our world down to this list. The parts that I've heard from Commissioner Cooney in the meetings and from the other 2 commissioners, keeping you apprised of what's going on. So we put this letter together as kind of our best efforts to be good partners, but also highlight both our concerns around some of the process, giving 30, the fact that we're given just 30 days to solve this. I've jokingly said several times, our next 30 days we'll do peace in the Middle East. 30 days to solve this issue, is a very tight turnaround. And nobody is going to love all of the aspects that are in this particular document. So with that, I guess I will pause for thoughts or comments.
I know, having been in the meetings, I'm very much in favor of us doing our separate letter, just like we did for the 30%. We should be consistent that way. Seeing Mark, or I'm sorry, John's on Zoom. John, is that what you're thinking with the Valley as well, that you guys are looking at doing a separate letter, not signing on?
Yes, that's the indication. We haven't met with all of our council members. Obviously, we'll do that tonight. We've had a couple individual meetings with them, and the council is very concerned about this process. It's really nothing that we would do here with our own program to kind of jump in so quickly and have things go like this. I think that's why in working with your staff, we've worked on a very similar letters that have concerns about the process. But we'll know more tonight after the council discusses it. But my indication is I think they'll have a hard time joining on as in full support.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I know Eric was at the meeting where, I just had, real concerns that I voiced at the meeting that, again, if we look at these people that are coming off, in chunks, 20, 30, 40, 50 at a time, how do you ensure that they're not backfilling? Because then we're not solving for the problem at all. And so that's, I think we tried to address in the enforcement piece of this. The other concern I have that is just really frustrating is this is taking beds away from people that are in the system, working their way out, doing the right thing, trying to get their lives together, that now they're going to be stuck because these people will jump ahead of them in situations. I said it at the other meeting, it feels like an unfunded mandate that's coming down to us. We don't have enough money. We know we don't have enough money to operate what we have currently. We're struggling with that to then add capacity to it without having that ongoing funding. And so that was really important to address. And everyone wants to talk about being compassionate to these people and helping them. And we all want to do that. And so my concern is as we put them in these other situations, and if we don't have other ongoing funding, that is not compassionate to then be putting them back out on the street. And so it's, to me, again, 30 days is not enough time to look at this holistically, to really figure out what we can do and how we can do it so we can do it right, instead of just trying to fix it quickly. And I think what we've seen in the article in the paper on Sunday with Camp Hope was that, they're a community of people that have established themselves there. And I think that's going to be very hard to undo that community. Again, that's trauma, as I'm hearing from people that have already been through a lot of trauma, to then take them out of that security and that feeling of family that they have there, and that sense of community that they have there. And so I think, concerned about that from a mental health and trauma perspective. So those were the things that I brought up at the meeting on, I think it was Friday, to everybody, so that I'm not trying to be a no, but I don't feel like we're been given the opportunity from Commerce to really figure this out and have good conversations and do it, I think, in a way that could be a lot better and less traumatic for these individuals. Instead of, I think it's going to be really hard to take people off in little groups.
What are they, it's growing about 50 people a month or so, right?
A week.
The last 2 weeks increased about 75 people.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, I knew they were over 600. Yeah, that article in the Spokes, I think it was that. I could have this wrong, but I think they had said Jules Helping Hands had done some sort of kind of a census of the group and asked them that a shelter was available, would you go to it? And of the 601, 51 people said they'd be willing to go to a shelter. That's not 51%. 51, like the raw number, 51 people.
600.
I mean, so less than 10% are willing to go to a shelter. I mean, so I think you're spot on about a community has formed here. And a lot of them are not going to want to walk away from that community. They're not going to want to leave that community. And so I mean, unfortunately, I think that an enforcement action will have to be a part of this if we want any of these other programs to be successful and actually be effective at helping people get out of the cycle of homelessness.
So
But yeah, so I would agree signing our own letter. I don't think we want to sign on and go full bore that we support every single thing in here. We need to lay out where we stand, what we have concerns with, and what we think needs to be a part of the plan. So.
I agree. And
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So I guess
otherwise I had a big, long speech. I was gonna,
a quick question, are you wanting, do you want a bit more time for us to do some wordsmithing on this, or are you ready to go with this? Cause I think either way, one way we need a motion to sign a letter, the other way a motion to sign it other than a public meeting before the 21st, which would be tomorrow.
Can I have one piece of clarity? To Commissioner Cuny's point, this right-of-way grant was specifically targeted towards the individual on the washed out right-of-way. We understand there's needs elsewhere in the community for affordable housing that gives some stability to people. What is in the letter is on the affordable housing, should those investments be funded, we would anticipate those to be used for people already in transitional housing or shelter that are ready to go. Their life is stable, they're ready to go into housing. We would not want to jump the queue, if you will, but it should then create available space in those other shelters or transitional housing for people from this on the encampment out on the washed out right away. So that is one of the things we've explicitly called out there.
And what we're hearing is that this is potentially like an all part list that Commerce may be looking at. And so I think having that additional piece for affordable housing, you know, since it was called out in the op-ed, that, you know, those are things that we could make happen. Not, you know, with construction, not overnight, but relatively, at least add to the capacity of our system.
so how, based upon what we've seen so far, this is a moving target. And I would anticipate that by Thursday, other elements are going to be moving. So will you be reaching out to the three of us to keep us abreast of what happens prior to whatever gets sent out on Thursday?
That would be the plan if you go, yeah, if you go with the, other than a public meeting route, we would keep you up to speed. I would expect the language should remain the same themes, but there might be some.
Yeah, you can't drift on the letter. If you're gonna vote, let them sign it other than an open meeting. It still has to be the letter.
Same
to go.
content.
Yeah.
Well,
But that's what I was getting at is how do we adjust for a moving target, but yet give Mary the authority to be able to sign for us? That's what I'm struggling with.
I think we're all gonna be signing on this letter.
I'm comfortable with this letter,
Okay,
the way it's
okay.
You know, we could
All right.
do is
And I think
as
it's gonna
we're
be
So then I would make a motion that we execute the letter that's been presented by staff to Mr. Kelleher dated July 19th, 2022 to the Department of Commerce for the right-of-way funding as part of the Spokane regional proposal.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just to confirm, this is gonna be signed by all of us or just the chair?
I think it should be signed by all of us.
Okay.
I just, one quick thing, like, you know, when I'm out talking to people and I tell them, and thank you, Jeff, for giving me this number. That with CARES funding, state and county funding, the last 2 years, we've spent over $48 million on homelessness. This puts another 24 million in the pot, and that doesn't include what the city of Spokane and Spokane Valley is doing. We've got to be spending well over $100 million. And when I tell people out in the neighborhoods, when I'm doorbelling that, it's like, oh dear God, you know, and stuff. So, you know, I appreciate the compassion, but you know, when people start understanding the numbers, oh man. So anyway, thank you.
No. Okay, when I have to open it up for public comment. There we go. Okay, so I have a motion and a second for us to adopt this letter that we have in front of us regarding the Department of Commerce right-of-way funding. Spokane region proposal. No one has actually seen this, so is that going to be an issue?
Yeah, you can open up for public comment. If anybody wants to comment on it, you've read this discussion about it.
Okay,
Nobody's physically here in the room. That's from the public, so that's fine that that's on the recording for us.
okay.
We should just breeze through the letter, just for the record.
The letter does have affordable housing, enforcement and sustainable funding are some of our concerns, but it is also a letter, you know, saying that we're in support of,
Where's the camera?
yeah. like what you said.
Zoom in. And
Yeah.
zoom in on this.
Knowing that Commerce will be making decisions based on the letter that goes into the city of Spokane. So, so I will open up for public testimony on this letter. First call for anyone wishing to testify. Second call for anyone wishing to testify on our letter. Third and final call. Seeing none, I will close the public testimony and look to my fellow, well, we've already made a motion and seconded. Any further discussion from us? Seeing none, all those in favor of signing this letter, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, and you'll be able to, you know, let the Valley City Council know tonight, you know, where we stand, and can have a copy of the letter.
Yeah, we'll get it on letterhead and get you a copy.
Okay, thank you very much for including us in this discussion.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, Eric. Okay,
And commissioners will, as things do evolve, we'll let you know what other changes the city of Spokane might be making, but obviously the stays as it is.
okay, I'll let you guys get, I'll have to come back and sign it. Otherwise, Brenda can sign it. So I leave tomorrow for NACO and we'll be gone until Sunday. So if anything does need my signature, I will say openly that my stamp can be used as long as Brenda checks with me ahead of time. So. Okay. Thank you. I do need to leave, so I will let Commissioner French take over the meeting.
Is there anything left?
Yes. We have an executive
Well,
session.
okay. Then- I thought it was gonna be an easy pass. We're adjourned. I guess not. Okay, fine. Mr. Simmons, it's up to you.
We have Ashley and Josh are here. Ashley, you want to, is she on?
Yes.
Ashley, you want to quickly introduce your executive session item and who's going to be attending?
Yes, so we have an executive session item, labor negotiations, RCW 42.30.144. In attendance will be the commissioners, our executive leadership team, Josh Grote and Mark McQueen. And I expect, I don't know, we'll go with 30 minutes.
Action anticipated?
No action anticipated.
All right, so we're going to go into executive session. Executive management team as well as Mr. Grote will join us. And we'll be in executive session for approximately 30 minutes. It is now 3:36 and we'll take a minute to get into executive, so 3:37. And we'll be in executive session until 4:07. Thank you.